What if the person who hurt you the most never actually existed? The face was real. The voice was real. But the one you trusted was something you built. You took a handful of true moments and you filled in the rest. You met someone calm and you decided they were safe. You met someone clever and you decided they were good. They listened to you once on a hard night and you handed them a whole soul they never earned. Then one day the real person walked in, and the real person was colder than the one you had been loving. You felt it before you understood it. A reply that came a little too late. A joke with a small blade hidden inside it. A warmth that switched off the moment you stopped being useful. You told yourself you were confused. You were not confused. You were watching a picture come apart. And here is the thing nobody says out loud. You were not in a relationship with that person. You were in a relationship with a picture of them. A picture you painted, a picture you fed, a picture that lived in your own mind, not in theirs. The picture was always yours. Think about how it actually happened. You did not fall for who they were. You fell for who you needed them to be. You needed someone steady, so their silence became depth. You needed someone loyal, so their attention became proof. You needed someone to choose you, so every small kindness became a promise. None of it was spoken. You signed a contract they never read, and when they failed to keep a promise they never made, you called it betrayal. But they did not break the real agreement. They broke the one inside your head. That is why the pain felt so strange. You were not grieving a person. You were grieving a version of them that only you could see. Notice when your mind does this most. It paints fastest when you are lonely. It paints fastest when you are tired of feeling unseen. A stranger smiles at you on an empty day, and within a week you have given them a personality. A new friend agrees with you twice, and you decide they finally understand you. Someone shows you a sliver of attention, and your mind takes that sliver and builds a cathedral. You are not foolish for doing this. Your mind hates an empty space. It would rather invent a person than sit with the silence of not knowing one. And the cruel trick is how good it feels while it lasts. The early days of a painted person are intoxicating. You feel understood by someone who has barely met you. You feel chosen by someone who has not decided anything yet. That rush you called chemistry was often just your own painting drying. The more your mind filled in, the more alive you felt. Not because they were giving you so much, because you were giving the picture everything you had been starving for. But every invented person eventually meets the real one, and the real one never quite fits the frame you made. Once you understand this, you start noticing it everywhere. You notice how people become different in different rooms. The gentle friend who turns sharp the moment they gain a little power. The honest one who gets defensive the second you are honest back. The warm one who goes quiet the instant you stop being convenient. And most of them are not lying on purpose. That is the unsettling part. They believe their own performance. They think the mask is the face. Ask yourself why they perform at all. It is the same reason you do. Underneath the calm voice and the easy smile, almost everyone is afraid. Afraid of being too much. Afraid of being not enough. Afraid that if you saw the whole of them, the fear and the need and the smallness, you would leave. So they show you an edited version. A version designed to be liked. A version designed to stay safe. And you, wanting to be close to someone, take that edited version and treat it as the truth. You build on a surface that was never meant to hold weight. Then you are shocked when it gives way. There is a small story that explains this better than anything. Arthur Schopenhauer, in Parerga and Paralipomena, wrote about a group of porcupines on a freezing night. The cold pushes them together for warmth. But the moment they get close, their spines wound each other, so they pull apart. Then the cold drives them back in, and they hurt each other again. Back and forth they go, stabbing and shivering until they find a single distance, close enough to share a little heat, far enough that the spines do not draw blood. That distance, Schopenhauer said, is what we call manners, politeness, good behavior, the pleasant surface. It is not closeness, it is the careful gap that keeps people from feeling each other completely. Sit with that for a second. Most of what you have been calling connection was just two people finding a comfortable distance. The smiles, the small talk, the easy warmth. A lot of it exists to keep the spines from touching. And notice what Schopenhauer was really pointing at. The porcupines do not stop being porcupines. The spines do not disappear. They simply learn the distance that lets them survive each other. So when you meet someone who seems perfectly smooth, perfectly kind, perfectly easy, that is not the absence of spines. That is someone who has learned exactly how far to stand. The smoothness is the distance, not the truth. You wanted to believe the smoothness was who they were, but it was only how they kept from cutting you and how they kept you from getting close enough to see them whole. And here's what your mind did with that gap. You could not see the real person hiding behind their distance, so you filled the gap with paint. You took the safe, polite version they offered, and you decorated it into someone you could love. You did not get close to them at all. You got close to the picture you placed inside the space they allowed. The picture was always yours. So why does it hurt so much when it falls? Because you did not only lose them, you lost the part of yourself you stored inside them. You put your hope in that picture, your idea of being understood, your idea of finally being chosen. When the picture cracked, all of that came falling back onto you at once, and the weight of it felt like heartbreak. But a lot of it was your own returning hope hitting the ground. Now watch what your mind tries to do next. It tries to repaint the picture. They were just stressed. They didn't mean it. That is simply how they are. You become a defense lawyer for someone who already left the room. Because the picture feels warmer than the truth. And your mind would rather protect a warm lie than sit with a cold fact. This is where most people get stuck for years. They keep restoring the painting. They keep funding a relationship with a person who exists only in memory. You text the picture, not the person. You miss the picture, not the person. You stay loyal to a face that stopped existing a long time ago, and the painting does something cruel to your memory. It goes back and recolors everything. The cold moments get softened. The warnings get explained away. The single good day gets stretched until it covers 100 bad ones. You end up missing a person who, if you are honest, was rarely there for you. You ache for an evening that happened once and a promise that was never made. The picture is not only in your present, it has reached back and rewritten your past, so you will keep holding on. And slowly, a darker question starts to form. What if you have been turning disrespect into misunderstanding? Not because they earned the benefit of the doubt, but because you were afraid of what it would mean to see them clearly. That question changes everything. Because many of your relationships did not survive on love. They survived on the picture you refused to put down. Let me name what this actually feels like in your body. It is the quiet exhaustion after seeing certain people. The sense that you performed for hours and came home empty. It is the compliment that suddenly sounds like a transaction. The affection that starts to feel like a strategy. The friend who only appears when something in their life is falling apart. It is being surrounded by people and feeling completely unseen. Phone full, room loud, and nobody there has ever met the real you. They met the picture you offered so they would stay comfortable. Think of the friend you only hear from when their world is on fire. You answer every time. You show up every time. And when your world burns, the silence on their end tells you everything. Think of the person who was warm to you right up until you needed something. The warmth was real while you were giving. It vanished the moment the giving had to flow the other way. Think of the people who praised you while you stayed small, and how their tone changed the day you stopped shrinking. You kept loving the picture of who they could be. They kept showing you who they already were. And for a long time, you chose the picture over the evidence. You have felt this. You just did not have words for it. If any of this is landing, comment the word clear. Not for the algorithm, for yourself. It marks the moment you admit you have been loving pictures instead of people. Say it plainly. Clear. Now, here's the turn. This pain you are feeling is not damage. It is sight returning. Most people go their whole lives never seeing past the picture. They romanticize, they get hurt, they repaint, they get hurt again. Round and round, blaming the world, never once looking at the brush in their own hand. But you stopped. You felt the gap between the image and the person. That gap is not weakness. That gap is the beginning of clear vision. You are not becoming bitter. You are becoming awake. And awake feels lonely at first because you can no longer unsee it. You watch people perform and you know it is a performance. You feel the tension under the politeness. You sense the distance Schopenhauer described, the careful space where the spines do not touch. It can tempt you towards something cold. A voice that says, "Trust no one, everyone wears a mask, connection is a myth." Do not follow that voice. That voice is just the picture flipping to its opposite. Instead of painting everyone as an angel, you start painting everyone as a threat. Same brush, new lie. Seeing clearly does not mean seeing the worst. It means stopping the painting altogether, letting people be exactly as large and as small as they actually are. The picture was always yours, which means the brush was always yours too. And a brush you own is a brush you can finally set down. So how do you live once you can see? You stop trusting words and start watching patterns. One kind moment means little. A pattern of kindness over time means everything. Let people show you who they are by repetition, not by speeches. You stop filling in the blanks. When you do not know something about someone, you let it stay unknown. You do not paint loyalty onto silence. You do not paint depth onto distance. You wait. You watch. You let reality arrive on its own. You stop taking the mask personally. When someone turns cold the moment you set a boundary, you do not collapse. You understand you simply stopped feeding a picture they were enjoying. Their reaction is information, not a verdict on your worth. You stop arguing with who people are. When someone shows you a hard truth about themselves, you believe them. You do not spend a year explaining away the thing they told you on the first day. You let the first honest signal count. You stop confusing intensity with depth, the fast connection, the instant understanding, the person who feels like home in a week. You learn to be a little suspicious of how quickly your mind wants to paint. Real closeness is slow. It is earned. It survives being inconvenient. You watch what people do when you are no longer useful. Stop giving for a while and see who stays. Stop performing your role and see who is still there in the quiet. The ones who remain when there is nothing to gain are the ones who were ever real. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Some will only ever see the picture they need you to be. You let them keep it. You stop setting yourself on fire to prove you are warm. You let people keep their real distance. You stop demanding total closeness from someone who can only offer the polite gap. And you stop pretending to offer total closeness to people who only want the gap from you. You meet them where they actually are, not where the painting put them. You start protecting your own warmth. Kindness with no limit just teaches people how to use you, so you keep the kindness and you grow a spine. Warm, but no longer available to be drained. You slow down at the beginning. The moment you feel yourself rushing to decide who someone is, you pause. That rush is the brush lifting. You set it down before the first stroke, and the hardest one. You learn to sit alone without painting anyone at all. Because the reason you built those pictures in the first place was simple. You did not want to be alone with the silence. The picture kept you company. The fantasy felt safer than the empty room. But the empty room is where you finally meet yourself, not the version you perform, the real one underneath. And here's the part that turns this from a warning into something deeper. When you stop romanticizing other people, you eventually turn the same clear eye on yourself. You catch yourself performing, showing confidence you do not feel, pulling away to make someone chase, pretending not to care because caring leaves you open. You realize you wear masks too. You realize other people have been loving a picture of you, and some of them will grieve when they finally meet the real one. This should not crush you. It should soften you, because now you understand everyone is doing the same frightened thing, reaching for warmth, afraid of the spines, settling for the safe distance and calling it love. You are not above it. You are inside it, like everyone else. And that shared condition is the most human thing there is. So you stop sorting people into heroes and monsters. You start seeing frightened people managing distance the best they can, including the one who hurt you, including you. That is not bitterness. That is mercy with its eyes open. And this is where most people lose their way. They see the masks and they go cold. They decide the answer is to wear thicker armor and trust no one ever again. But armor is just another picture. It is the painting of yourself as someone who cannot be hurt, and it keeps you exactly as alone as the fantasy did. The harder thing, the rarer thing, is to see clearly and stay open anyway, to know that people perform and choose to love the real ones regardless, to keep your warmth without keeping your blindness. That is not weakness. That is the only strength that was ever worth having. You begin to feel something unfamiliar toward the people who disappointed you. Not anger, not longing, a kind of quiet understanding. They were never the villain in your story. They were just a real person standing where you had hung a painting. The picture was always yours. And the day you set it down is the day you stop asking people to be something they cannot be. You stop begging reality to be softer than it is. And strangely, that is when the world goes quiet and clear. Not hopeful, not hopeless, just true. You become slower to trust and deeper when you do. Harder to fool, and gentler with the ones who are honest, less hungry for attention, less hypnotized by charm, less willing to abandon what you sense just to keep a picture alive. You stop chasing people who only loved the easy version of you. You stop performing for rooms that were never going to see you anyway. And in the small, quiet space that opens up, something real finally has room to grow. Because the few who stay once the painting is gone, the ones who meet the real you and do not flinch, those are the only ones who are ever actually there. And you finally understand the thing most people avoid their whole lives. The danger was never that someone could deceive you. The danger was that your own loneliness could deceive you first, that your hope could paint a face that was never there. Once you see that, people stop shocking you. The coldness, the masks, the distance. It stops feeling like betrayal. It starts feeling like what it always was, human. You can love people now, real ones, as they are, spines and warmth and fear and all, not the painting, the person, and the person, seen clearly, is enough. Something quiet happens inside you when you reach this place. You stop needing people to be more than they are, and in the same breath, you stop needing to be more than you are. The energy you spent painting other people, the energy you spent keeping your own picture polished for the world, all of it comes back to you. You become honest in small ways that no one applauds. You let your face match what you feel. You let a silence sit instead of filling it with performance. You let someone see a little of the fear, and you do not run. And you notice that the people who can stay through that are rare, but the ones who can are real. And one real connection weighs more than 100 beautiful pictures. There is a strange peace waiting on the other side of this. For most of your life, you carried a gallery in your head. Idealized faces, imagined loyalties, people who only existed when you closed your eyes, and carrying all of them was exhausting. You were always comparing the real person to the painting. Always disappointed, always repainting, always grieving someone who was never there. When you finally take the gallery down, the noise stops. You stop auditioning people for roles in your fantasy. You start simply meeting them. And meeting a real human, with nothing added and nothing imagined, turns out to be lighter than loving a ghost. You do not need them to complete the picture anymore. You do not need anyone to be the face you invented in the dark. You set the brush down. You let the room be quiet. And for the first time, what you are looking at is true. If this reached you, leave a like. I read every comment.